It actually probably saved my life. It is the reason why I am where I am today, because my grandmother gave me the foundation for success.
Oprah Winfrey became the most influential woman in TV history and created a media business worth billions. But behind the cheers and the Emmy Awards, there is a story that few people know. Now, as she turns 72, many are reflecting on her life and asking questions. How did she rise from a very poor childhood in rural Mississippi to become a global star? And how did all her struggles affect her? Join us as we explore the true story of a woman whose bravery went far beyond what we saw on screen. Born into poverty in rural Mississippi, Oprah Gail Winfrey was born in a small town called Kosciuszko in rural Mississippi. Her mother, Vernita Lee, was just a teenager at the time, and her father, Vernon Winfrey, was a young man who had no idea he had become a parent until much later. Oprah arrived into a world that had very little to offer her, and from her very first days, life made clear that nothing was going to come easy. She spent the first 6 years of her life on her grandmother's farm, living in what most people would describe as extreme poverty. There was no running water, no luxury, and very little comfort. Her grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, was strict and demanding.
She did the best she could. She was a maid, was a domestic worker her entire life.
But she also gave Oprah two things that would define her future: the ability to read and a deep connection to the church community. By the time Oprah was 3 years old, she was already reciting Bible verses in front of the congregation, and people could see that this little girl had something extraordinary inside her. But the warmth of that church community was not enough to shield young Oprah from the harshness of the world around her. When her grandmother fell ill, Oprah was sent to live with her mother in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the life she found there was worlds away from anything she had known before. The city was harder, colder, and far more dangerous for a small girl with no protection and no one truly looking out for her. When Oprah moved to Milwaukee to live with her mother, she was just 6 years old and full of hope. But the home she arrived in was not a safe one. Her mother worked long hours and was rarely home, and in her absence, the adults around young Oprah took advantage of their access to a small, unprotected child. Starting when she was 9 years old, Oprah was taken advantage of by a cousin, and then by another family member, and then by yet another person she should have been able to trust. This continued for years. Oprah has said in interviews that it happened at age 9, then 10, then 11, 12, 13, and 14. She had no language for what was being done to her. She had no adult to tell, and so she carried the secret inside herself, stuffing the pain down as deep as she could and trying to survive each day as it came. The shame she felt was enormous, even though none of what happened was ever her fault. In 1986, Oprah finally spoke publicly about what she went through for the first time during an episode of her talk show. She described going to family members at age 24 and being told they did not believe her. The courage it took to speak that truth on national television, when so many people had already refused to listen, said everything about the kind of woman Oprah was becoming. But the wounds from those years never fully disappeared, and they shaped every chapter of her life that followed. As if the mistreatment she endured were not enough, the consequences of those terrible years were about to bring a second tragedy that Oprah would not speak about publicly for a very long time. A baby lost and a secret kept for decades. By the time Oprah was 14 years old, she was in a desperate and frightening place. She had become, by her own description, a young girl with no boundaries and no sense of her own worth. And in 1968, that pain led to a pregnancy that she hid from almost everyone around her because she was too full of shame and fear to tell the truth. She gave birth to a baby boy who was born premature and lived for only 2 weeks before dying. Oprah has said she was so overwhelmed by pain and shame that she did not even give her son a name at the time. She kept the secret tightly guarded for years, terrified of what the world would think of her. When the story eventually came out in 1990, sold by a family member to the National Enquirer for $19,000, Oprah described it as the first time she truly felt betrayed. Years later, during a speaking tour in Australia, Oprah finally did something she had never done before. She named her son. She called him Canaan because she said the name means new land and new life, and she wanted his short existence in this world to mean something. The moment she shared that name with an audience of 12,000 people was one of the most quietly devastating things she had ever done in public, and it showed how much pain she had been quietly managing for decades. But even as Oprah carried that private grief, the world outside had no idea, because not long after the baby's death, she made a choice that would change the direction of her entire life. The father who gave her a second chance. After the death of her infant son, Oprah's mother sent her to Nashville, Tennessee, to live with her father, Vernon Winfrey. This was a turning point that Oprah has described as the moment she was saved. Vernon Winfrey was a strict and disciplined man who believed deeply in the power of education and hard work. And from the moment Oprah arrived on his doorstep, he made clear that her life was going to be different from that point forward. Vernon required Oprah to read books and report back to him on what she had learned. He set rules and kept them. He gave her structure and accountability, things she had never truly had before. And slowly, something remarkable began to happen. The girl who had been told her whole life that she was not enough began to believe that she might actually be capable of something great. She threw herself into school, became an honors student, and discovered that when she spoke in public, people could not look away. By the time she was in high school, Oprah was excelling in speech and drama and winning local speaking competitions. She won a full scholarship to Tennessee State University, where she studied communication. She got a job at a Nashville radio station at 17 years old, becoming the youngest person and the first Black woman ever to anchor the news there. The world was starting to open up for her, and she was running toward it with everything she had. But even with all that momentum and promise, the entertainment industry was getting ready to deliver a blow that would have stopped most people in their tracks. Fired and told she was unfit for television. At just 22 years old, Oprah got what looked like a great job. She became a co-anchor for WJZ-TV in Baltimore, Maryland. She was the first African-American woman to have that job at that station. And it seemed like all her hard work was finally paying off. But things quickly went wrong because the people in charge at the station didn't want the same things from TV that Oprah did. They told her, "Oprah, you are too emotional. You care too much about the people in the stories you cover." When she covered stories about Black people, she always tried to show them with respect, instead of just reading the script given to her. Her bosses were very clear about their opinions. They said she was the wrong race, the wrong body type, and that she expressed too much feeling. In the end, she was taken off the anchor desk and pushed aside. A producer allegedly told her she was not suitable for TV news. The station didn't want to pay her contract, so they moved her to a struggling local talk show called People Are Talking, thinking it would end her career quietly. Instead, something amazing happened. When Oprah sat down in the talk show chair and started talking to real people about real issues, everything changed. Viewers noticed right away. The honesty that got her fired from the news desk was what made her a star in this new role. What seemed like the end of her career was actually the start of something much bigger. However, the journey from that small Baltimore talk show to becoming a national star was still filled with challenges, some of which were very personal. The weight battle that played out before the whole world. When the Oprah Winfrey Show went national in 1986, Oprah did not just become a television host. She became a mirror that millions of American women looked into every morning, and everything she said and did and looked like became part of a national conversation. For a woman who had already spent years fighting to be seen as fully human, that kind of scrutiny was almost unbearable, and it showed up most painfully in one specific area: her weight. For 25 years, making fun of Oprah's body was what she once called a national sport. Her weight went up, and the tabloids wrote about it. Her weight went down, and the tabloids wrote about that too, but with a tone that made it clear they were just waiting for it to go back up. Behind the weight struggle was something much harder to talk about: a complicated relationship with food that Oprah has linked directly to the issues from her childhood, the emotional eating, the comfort-seeking, and the way food became a way to cope with feelings that had no other outlet. In 2007, Oprah discovered she had a thyroid condition that was making it even harder for her body to manage its weight, and she went public with the diagnosis because she wanted other women to know they were not alone. The thyroid had swung from overactive to underactive, leaving her exhausted, foggy, and gaining weight despite her best efforts. She described the feeling as her body turning on her, and the rawness of that description stayed with people because it was one of the most honest things anyone in her position had ever said out loud. And yet the shame and the criticism never fully stopped, even after she shared her health struggles with the world. But another kind of physical pain was quietly building alongside the public battle with her weight, and this one would eventually bring her to her knees in a very literal sense. 2 knee surgeries and a reckoning with mortality. By 2021, something had gone seriously wrong with Oprah's knees. Years of weight fluctuations, high-impact exercise routines, and aging had all taken a cumulative toll on her joints, and the pain had become so bad that walking down just 2 steps to get into a car had become an ordeal. Multiple doctors told her the same thing: it was time for knee replacement surgery. And so in August of 2021, she went under the knife for the first time. When she came home after that first surgery, Oprah could not lift her leg. She could not get her heel off the bed. She lay there in her house, one of the most powerful women in the world, and she could not perform the most basic physical movement a human being makes. The recovery was what she later described as brutal, a word that carries real weight coming from a woman who had survived the things she had survived. But just 3 months later, in November of 2021, she had to go back for surgery on the second knee. The experience changed something in her. As she slowly rehabilitated, she started hiking. First 5 minutes, then a little more, then more again, until eventually she was hiking 10 miles up a mountain. And in 2024, at age 70, she appeared on a morning news program and said something that stopped people cold. There is a sense of knowing that there is not as much time left, and she was at peace with that knowing. The woman who had conquered so much was finally facing the one thing no one can conquer, and she was doing it with her eyes wide open. But even as she faced questions of mortality, there was another quiet battle she had been managing for years, one that touched the most private corners of her emotional world: the love she chose not to marry. For more than 4 decades, Oprah Winfrey has shared her life with one man, Stedman Graham. They met in 1986, fell in love, and have been together ever since. In 1992, Stedman proposed, and Oprah said yes. But the wedding never happened. And the reason she has given over the years is one of the most quietly poignant things she has ever said about her own life. She believes that if they had gotten married, they would not still be together today. Oprah has talked openly about the fact that she did not grow up in a home that modeled healthy love. She did not have parents who stayed together or showed her what a lasting, trusting relationship looked like. And she carried the weight of her childhood trauma into her adult relationships, in ways that she has spent decades trying to understand. She once said she had not been mothered well, and she chose not to become a mother herself partly for that reason.
Everything you are and everything you have is because of that butler.
But the TV icon, actress, and humanitarian is not a mother, and now a stunning confession.
A decision she has said she is at peace with, even as it remains one of the most complicated choices of her life. Oprah's relationship with Stedman has lasted because it is based on true friendship and respect, not the usual expectations of marriage. She has said that if she had chosen to be a traditional wife and mother, it would have been very hard to build her successful career. There is love in her life, but it doesn't match what many people think it should be. And that difference between what people expect and what is real has caused her some sadness. And while Oprah navigated the private complexities of love and partnership, the professional world she had built was about to hand her one of the most public and humbling failures of her career: the network that almost broke her. In 2011, the same year the Oprah Winfrey Show ended its 25-year run, and Oprah launched OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, in partnership with the Discovery Channel. On paper, it seemed like the natural next chapter for the most successful woman in television history. In practice, it became one of the most difficult professional experiences of her life.
Oprah Winfrey launches her own network.
Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to OWN, the brand new Oprah Winfrey Network.
The Oprah Winfrey Network, known as...
The ratings were low from the beginning, the reviews were harsh, and the losses were mounting in ways that shook even someone with Oprah's resources and confidence. She has since said that she regrets ending her talk show and launching the network in the same year. It was too much change at once, she has explained, and she lost her audience before she had figured out how to bring them somewhere new. There were months when she wondered whether the whole thing was going to collapse, and the press was not kind. For a woman who had spent decades being celebrated as someone who could do no wrong, the experience of watching something she had built with her own name on it struggle so publicly was genuinely painful. Oprah faced tough times, but she did what she always does. She kept fighting. She brought in new workers and created new shows. Gradually, OWN started to succeed, with programs like Queen Sugar and Greenleaf attracting loyal viewers, and the network eventually became profitable. However, this journey took a toll on her. It cost her confidence, sleep, and years of hard-earned certainty. The Oprah who emerged from this struggle was stronger, but she also carried unseen burdens. She has spoken about loss in a way that is both sad and enlightening. She mentioned that losing her baby felt like a second chance for her own life, allowing her to return to school and pursue her dreams without anyone knowing what had happened. Yet, the mix of feelings, guilt intertwined with relief and grief beneath gratitude, has been something she has learned to cope with throughout her life. She named him Canaan because she needed to believe that even the shortest life has meaning, and that belief that every life matters, that every story deserves to be told with honesty and care, became the foundation of everything Oprah Winfrey ever built. The girl who was told she was too emotional, too big, the wrong color, and unfit for television went on to change television entirely. She did it not in spite of her pain, but because of it. Which part of Oprah's story moved you the most? Do you think the world has ever fully seen her the way she deserves to be seen? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.